Science plays a vital role for economic development and societal well-being. Understanding this, the Academy of Sciences Malaysia was established with a mission to be Malaysia's thought leader in all areas of science, technology, and innovation. To realize its mission, ASM harnesses the nation's top scientific minds to chart the STI direction and facilitates the implementation of an innovation-led economy for the country. ASM's commitment lies firmly in fostering a culture of excellence in STI in Malaysia. ASM does this by providing independent, credible, relevant, and timely STI input of national and international importance to the country. Our network of expertise comprises Malaysian scientists, engineers, and technologists who specialize in various disciplines. The Academy assists in upgrading the nation's technological capabilities in the industrial sectors by producing high-quality publications such as peer-reviewed journals, monographs, and books. In addition, ASM also provides input on current and future technology trends to be considered and taken up by the government in driving the nation's economy forward. To provide Malaysian scientists with the best opportunities and exposure, ASM actively extends its international networks and collaborations. It currently has a range of multilateral engagements with renowned scientific institutions worldwide. The Academy also champions the need to grow the right talent in STI by cultivating interests in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to the younger generation. In short, the Academy's ethos is proudly defined as Think Science, Celebrate Technology, Inspire Innovation. Science plays a vital role for economic development and societal well-being. Understanding this, the Academy of Sciences Malaysia was established with a mission to be Malaysia's thought leader in all areas of science, technology, and innovation. To realize its mission, ASM harnesses the nation's top scientific minds to chart the STI direction and facilitates the implementation of an innovation-led economy for the country. ASM's commitment lies firmly in fostering a culture of excellence in STI in Malaysia. ASM does this by providing independent, credible, relevant, and timely STI input of national and international importance to the country. Our network of expertise comprises Malaysian scientists, engineers, and technologists who specialize in various disciplines. The Academy assists in upgrading the nation's technological capabilities in the industrial sectors by producing high-quality publications such as peer-reviewed journals, monographs, and books. In addition, ASM also provides input on current and future technology trends to be considered and taken up by the government in driving the nation's economy forward. To provide Malaysian scientists with the best opportunities and exposure, ASM actively extends its international networks and collaborations. It currently has a range of multilateral engagements with renowned scientific institutions worldwide. The Academy also champions the need to grow the right talent in STI by cultivating interests in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to the younger generation. In short, the Academy's ethos is proudly defined as Think Science, Celebrate Technology, Inspire Innovation.
Now, we will move on to the next keynote address by Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Zakri Abdul Hamid. Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Zakri Abdul Hamid will be talking about sustaining natural resources for people and the planet under the track of Tropical Natural Resources of the Mahathir Science Award. Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Zakri Abdul Hamid is currently the chairman of Atri Advisory and spearheading the WISE Foundation and National Geographic Campaign for Nature 30 by 30 initiative in the ASEAN region. Professor, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, you must have heard of climate change, but today I'm going to speak to you on a subject which is equally crucial besides climate change, and that is biodiversity or natural resources. I'll be speaking from my personal experience over a period of 3 decades as a technical advisor in my country's delegation in the negotiation of the United Nations Biodiversity Convention, CBD, and my involvement at the international level, several of which are quite significant. One is my role as the co-chair of the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, one of the largest study to assess the state of health of our ecosystem, carried out from 2001 to 2005 involving 2,000 experts from 95 countries. The other one was when I was elected as the founding chair of the IPBES. I will elaborate further on what that all means. And the third one is, of course, being a member of the UN Secretary General's Scientific Advisory Board. Nationally, I used to be the science advisor to the Prime Minister, but I'm also involved, for instance, as the chair of the National Task Force to formulate the first national policy on biological diversity. Ladies and gentlemen, biological diversity or biodiversity simply means the variability among living organisms from all sources, whether it's terrestrial, marine, or aquatic. And this resource, as Edward Wilson used to say, is our most valuable but least appreciated resource. And one of the problem of that is the loss of biodiversity, which to many people is much bigger than climate change. And this is one of the problem that you see. This is a picture I took at the border of Kelantan and Cameron Highland a few years ago from a pristine forest. Look at those blue mountains in the background. It can turn out to be this moonscape barren land, which I also took in Cameron Highland. This is the stark picture of biodiversity loss. But ladies and gentlemen, to be sure, the problem is being taken up by the international community, and as early as 1987, the Brundtland Commission released this milestone report, Our Common Future, which discussed the problem and road ahead. Simply means this is the first time that sustainable development is addressed in the mainstream. Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So the problem is very big that it gravitates into a global meeting, as some of you may know, the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in June 1992, where the Treaty on Biodiversity and also climate change and desertification were adopted at this key meeting, which resulted in the document Agenda 21. So my role, ladies and gentlemen, is being the ticket of king, helping in the negotiation, and also to narrate the role of science or science advice in formulating a good consensus document. And we did that for almost 2 years intensively in various capitals of the world. The science diplomacy would involve not only the diplomats, but also other government officials, academia, and other stakeholders. At issue, ladies and gentlemen, is how we want to conserve biological diversity or biodiversity. And the treaty's three goals are conservation, sustainable use of its components, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. The issue is not only scientific, but more so it is quite political in nature. For instance, biodiversity once used to be seen as a common heritage of humankind, but the treaty spell out that biodiversity has just to be a common concern of humankind because biodiversity is a sovereign issue. That means each country has a right over it. Secondly, I think for many countries, in particular the developed north, conservation is seen as a panacea to halt biodiversity loss, while the developing south, the developing countries would agree to this, but they also think that there is a case to utilize those natural resources for socio-economic development. So in a sense, that is the question, the balance between conservation and development. Further, because biodiversity also holds a lot of those resources that could be useful to humankind, how those resources are extracted, managed, and utilized is also an issue that was discussed at the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key elements in the ongoing negotiation is the role of science advice. How science could advise the political leaders and the policymakers to formulate better programs, better policies, and better strategies. So in that context, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, or IPBES, was established in 2012 by the member countries, and I was unanimously elected as the founding chair of IPBES in 2013, and I hold that position until 2016. In actual fact, IPBES is to emulate the success of the well-known Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, in which thousands of scientists draw up an assessment of global warming to help policy makers. The ambience for this negotiation also, ladies and gentlemen, is the very active involvement of nations, of international organizations, business community, NGOs, and academia. This is what I call the politics of biodiversity loss. And this meeting, which has been held every 2 years since 30 years ago, the latest one was early this month in China, which is known as the COP15 of the Biodiversity Conference, where everyone agrees that biodiversity is the so-called web of life. Without it, we can't survive. And in Kunming, China, there is a renewed commitment to conserve biodiversity in the document which is still being negotiated called the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. The aim is to halt biodiversity loss by 2030. Now, why should we think that biodiversity is important? Let us refer to some of the key messages, and one of the most important is a statement released by the IPBES in 2019, when it said that 1 million species of flora and fauna are under threat of extinction. That is a very serious statement. For instance, about 75% of land and 66% of ocean areas have been significantly altered by people. The problem is that land most of the time is being altered for human use also to produce food. Agricultural production is seen to be one of the largest contributor of biodiversity loss. Others also include logging, hunting, fishing, pollution, and the spread of invasive species. And last but not least is of course climate change. And it was said that an estimated 5% of all species would be threatened with extinction by 2 degrees Celsius or warming above pre-industrial level. So biodiversity loss, if you look around, you can be very familiar with it. And this seen here is some of the causes for that disruption. Of course, we are very much into this problem with the emergence of the pandemic COVID-19. Science has shown that the biggest cause for this COVID-19 is the destruction of the habitat of wild animals, which release all those viruses which inflict human beings. So COVID-19 is more or less a wake-up call for humanity to be more respectful of the environment, in particular our natural resources or biodiversity. Ladies and gentlemen, just to sum up in a graphic form, the primary drivers of biodiversity loss would include habitat destruction, invasive species, overexploitation, pollution, and climate change. Now, why is biodiversity important to us? There are several reasons for that. One is, of course, economic. Biodiversity provides humans with raw materials for consumption. Second, the ecological life support. Biodiversity provides functioning ecosystem like supplying oxygen, clean air, and clean water. Third, recreation. Many recreational pursuits rely on our unique biodiversity, such as bird watching, hiking, camping, and of course, ecotourism. Fourth, cultural. Most cultures are closely connected to biodiversity, and in some communities of indigenous people, biodiversity is very close to them because it has connection with their spiritual beliefs about animals and plants. And of course, finally, scientific. Biodiversity represents a wealth of systematic ecological data that help us to understand the natural world and its origin. Just to sum up, again, ecosystem services is provisioning food, fresh water, regulating climate, flood, and water purification, cultural, aesthetic, and spiritual, and supporting nutrient cycling, soil formation, and primary production. Just to illustrate some of the significance of biodiversity, here's one. Biodiversity and medicine. Wild species are original sources of many medicines. For instance, the well-used painkiller aspirin. And the connection between biodiversity and healthcare is very well known. Many species can provide novel medicine, and was said that 10 of our top 25 drugs come directly from wild plants. And ladies and gentlemen, the extent of monetary value of biodiversity to some of this industry would be tremendous. Here I listed out some of those industry which include pharmaceutical, biotechnology, crop protection, seed production, horticulture, and natural personal care and cosmetics. And it's obvious here the global revenues run into the billions of dollars. So it's very important. Now let's look at our part of the world, ASEAN, look at the current status of biodiversity in ASEAN. You know, ASEAN, while occupying only 3% of the Earth's surface, the region boasts of globally significant terrestrial and marine biodiversity. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, ASEAN hosts an astonishing 18% of all species on Earth. And it has the most diverse coral reefs in the world. We know of the coral triangle. And 3 countries in ASEAN are mega diverse. That is Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Biodiversity loss in ASEAN, the region, like the rest of the world, is increasingly losing biodiversity at an alarming rate within various ecosystems, forests, mangroves, and the like. And the growing population dependence on timber, fuelwood, and other forest products, as well as the conversion of forests into agricultural and industrial land, are taking their toll on the region's forests. Now, while ASEAN is gifted with immense mangrove resources, it nonetheless suffers the highest rates of mangrove losses in the world. And ASEAN, although it hosts the largest coral reef areas in the world, it also has the highest rate of loss, which today stands at 40%. But the leaders in the region are not oblivious to this danger, and various steps to conserve and use biodiversity sustainably are being carried out in the region. And this is led by bodies like the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, based in the Philippines, and various projects like conservation and management of protected areas are in place. And from time to time, there are campaigns or public awareness programs which are being conducted by the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity and several other organizations in the region. Now, the last part, I want to look at the current status of biodiversity in Malaysia. We claim that the current tree cover is around 55.3%, but we know this may include plantations and degraded forest stand. So it's not all pure biodiversity. According to the FAO of the UN, Malaysia only have 18.7% of primary forests, of which only 11.6% is pristine. And some of the data source like Google shows that Malaysia has the highest deforestation rate at 14.4%. And the Carnegie Lancet analysis suggests that more than 80% of rainforests in East Malaysia have been logged. And there was one report saying 567 plant species out of 1,600 in Peninsular Malaysia are listed as threatened. So these are not really good news, ladies and gentlemen. And when we say biodiversity loss is high, this example in Malaysia and ASEAN are the reason why that is so. But all the same, this country is also sensitive to the need to conserve and use biodiversity in a sustainable way. And one of that document is the National Policy on Biological Diversity, with its commitment to conserve and promote sustainable use of biological biodiversity. These are some of the principles of the National Biodiversity Policy, which are quite well known. It includes things like it's a heritage, it's a national heritage. We have a shared responsibility to act and also to plan and manage biodiversity in the participatory manner. And definitely good governance, including accountability and transparency, is crucial to biodiversity conservation. I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by citing some of the good work done by the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. There are very many, but two outstanding one would be ASM, the 1010 My SDIE program, which was launched recently, which includes biodiversity as one of its focus areas. And the program on precision biodiversity is also very instructive of how the academy try to contribute and influence policy to conserve and sustainably use biodiversity. And of course, globally, ladies and gentlemen, there's a campaign for nature which plans to protect at least 30% of the planet by 2030. This is included for negotiation in the ongoing post-2020 global biodiversity framework. In other words, all of us are trying our best to make sure that biodiversity stays on. Let me just conclude by quoting Sir David Attenborough when he says, "It's surely our responsibility to do everything within our power to create a planet that provides a home, not just for us, but for all life on Earth." And if I may add, as we realize biodiversity predicates current and future human health, we, the public, as well as our government, must push for greater collective action to conserve the sanctity, biodiversity, and beauty of our environment for future generations to come. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Zakri Abdul Hamid, for the keynote lecture. We will now move on to the Meet the Speaker session, and the session will be moderated by Datuk Dr. Abdul Rahim Nik, a Fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. For your information, the session will be organized via Zoom. You should see Meet the Speakers button on the conference lobby page, and you will be redirected to the sessions once you click on the button. We will see you there.